Hey guys, it's John here, and I've got myself a new bike. This is pretty exciting for me. Probably not as exciting for you, but it's exciting for me, and I thought I'd show it off just a little bit. We're going to go for a ride just in a little bit, and we're going to get a chance to see what it's like on the bike. I've had the bike since Saturday. Today is Monday. I bought it on Saturday. It is a 2014 Kawasaki Vulcan Vaquero ABS Special Edition, and the Special Edition means it comes in this really cool orange paint and has the flames that I have to admit are kind of goofy, but they're growing on me and they are kind of cool. And it's 1700, meaning a 1700cc V-twin is what powers it. A little over 100 foot-pounds of torque. I don't believe that's at the rear wheel, that's probably at the crank. But yeah, plenty of power, a whole lot more power than the Vulcan 900 that I traded in. I enjoyed that bike a lot. It was a lot of fun, and this bike I love even more. We'll start from the front to the back. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the bike for those who aren't familiar with it, and beyond that, lots of chrome, a little bit less chrome than the last one, but hi. We're going to do a quick overview, and on the bike, when we're actually on it, I'm going to give you an overview of my impressions after 100 or so miles this weekend. Basically, what it's like to own this bike brand new. Later on, I'll do a review after having owned it for a while, and you know what I might learn between now and then. But consider this kind of an introductory review. Generally, I leave the first experience reviews to the professionals. You know, there's all kinds of videos out there reviewing this bike and others. But who knows? Maybe we can learn something from my experiences. Oh, excuse me for the finger in the camera there. From my experiences owning this bike for the first time, and then again, as we get some miles on it, we'll talk about it, what it's like to own it, what it's like to actually have one, instead of just review one. So, starting up front, one of the things you'll notice different than my 900 is, first off, cast wheels instead of spoked wheels, which means there are no tubes in the tires, which means they can be much more easily patched on the side of the road. That's a very sought-after feature for a long-distance touring bike. And dual disc brakes on the front. There's a disc on each side, and of course caliper and pads as well. A lot more stopping power on the front, and it also has Kawasaki's K-Act ABS system, which is not just ABS, it's also a linked braking system, wherein if you use either the rear brake or the front brake, both will be activated accordingly. If you step on the rear brake, you're getting a bias of rear brake, mostly rear brake, but you can feel the front brakes engaging as well. Likewise, if you grab the front brake, you can feel a little bit of rear brake. During hard braking, though, it is going to use a lot more of both brakes, and that's a really important safety feature. When the last couple of reports that have been done on motorcycle accidents, the Hurt report is a famous one, but there were newer ones done by the National Institute for Traffic Highway Safety, or whatever that one is, all found that riders overwhelmingly just used one brake, just the front or just the rear. And they know better. We know better. When we ride, we know better. But a lot can happen when the adrenaline is pumping and you're in an emergency situation. So having that nice little peace of mind that even if I screw up, the bike is going to help me out a little bit is great. And that's also what ABS does for you. You know, I practice and learned how to operate non-ABS brakes and how not to lock them up. But having a little peace of mind that I don't have to do all the thinking is kind of nice. And I know some kind of will have the Luddite approach of you know, hey, I don't like the idea of a computer or this or that doing the thinking for me, and I understand that. And on this bike, you cannot disable ABS like you can on some. So if you buy an ABS Vaquero, you've got ABS all the time. But I've come to really trust ABS systems and how effective they are, especially in the rain and in bad weather. But I guess that's a topic for another vlog. Maybe that'll be a vlog this year, is the pros and cons of ABS systems. Coming around the front, here's the dash, which is, of course, styled off of a 60s American car, which is really cool if you ask me. Let me stick the key in here and show off these gauges. They do a little gauge sweep when you fire it up. Here's another cool feature. I don't have any keys hanging off this key right now, but I could. And when you turn the key on, you can pull it right back out and stick it in your pocket. But here we go. I'm going to turn that down before YouTube gets me for copyright violations. but there's the gauges, which are really cool. And as you can see, I have 143 miles on it, and I'm averaging 39.8 miles per gallon. I've never really cared much about fuel economy on a motorcycle, but I guess it's kind of cool that this tells me exactly how much. And zooming in a little bit, you can see the various indicator lights. We have our turn signal indicators. This also has automatic canceling turn signals, which is a cool feature. And you know, your neutral indicator, low fuel indicator, high beam indicator, and so on and so forth. And below you also have a yellow ABS light, which comes on until the bike starts moving. Like most bikes with ABS, there's a little thing down here called an exciter ring right here, and that is how the bike knows how fast the wheel is spinning, and that's how the bike knows if the wheel has locked up. If you look very, very closely down there, there's a sensor down there that's actually reading that ring. Until that ring starts moving, the ABS system is off. And so there's a yellow light to let you know that the ABS system is off. Now, like every ABS system in the world, if it fails into a mechanical braking system. The ABS brakes do not fail or cease to work when the ABS system is off like it is right now. They still work like regular brakes. Once you get moving, that yellow light goes off and ABS is back on. Switch between your range, showing full because I just got gas before I pulled in the house, and switching your trip odometers and your odometer. In addition, you have cruise control. You have a power switch here to turn cruise control on, and your set minus and set plus accelerate, decelerate, just like your car. This bike does have cruise control. That's the other yellow light that just came on. We'll talk about cruise control when we're riding it. How about that? And then over here you have all of your entertainment controls, volume, tuning the radio or changing songs on your iPod, and then a CB squelch and push the talk button if you have the CB option. And that's a several $100 option. You have to install an additional antenna besides the FM radio antenna, and you have to install a box that contains all the CB equipment. It's a pretty expensive option, pretty expensive accessory, if you ask me, but it works effectively, and you know, in theory. So it's not an accessory I'm going to be getting. I don't imagine I'd use CB radio that much, but it's cool that you can get it. Underneath the seat is actually 2 pre-wired leads for attaching headsets. Now, I use a Bluetooth headset, and so does my wife, so we have no need for that. But this bike does come pre-wired for an intercom system for communicating with your passenger, or, of course, for using that CB radio to communicate with other bikes. Moving back, we've got hard saddlebags, which come factory. Those are factory bags. They lock with the same key with the ignition uses, and side open, which are pretty cool. An LED tail light comes standard. The nice V for Vulcan, kind of an old Cadillac style. Coming around the other side, of course, you have the same saddlebag. The exhaust is 2 into 2. It's a dual exhaust system, and you can see both header pipes, both exhaust pipes come down this side and come into kind of a fake combo there, which is really just a plastic cover. It might be metal, just a cover. And underneath, you can actually see, if you look real closely, you can see the exhaust pipe actually bends to run around to the other side. Chrome highway bars and a lower fairing are standard, which are really exciting. Again, this is a really exciting bike to ride. It's a lot of fun. It does a lot of cool things. By the way, here I'll turn the hazard flashers on so you can check out these smoked lenses that I installed. Somebody sent me these, and he bought them for his bike, and turned out they weren't compatible. So they're cool. You know, it's something different, these kind of smoked lenses. And a lot of metrics don't come with hazard lights, so it's pretty cool that this does. You know, that's not an essential feature. I want you to listen really carefully. I don't know if my microphone will pick this up or not, but right here, behind this V-Twin 1700 cover, is the throttle system. And if you listen very closely, you can hear it actuating when I actuate the throttle. This is an electronic throttle valve system. Now, that means there's a little bit of lag, and that means that there's no physical connection between the throttle and the engine. That's not a safety concern. If it fails, you simply lose throttle. But just keep that in mind. That's something that some people don't like. I don't have a preference either way, but it's one of the things that enables the cruise control system to work so well. And, of course, it has a stereo. And it works just like stereo in your car. You've got presets, and you've got a volume control, and you've got the communications button for the CB system should you have that installed. A couple of glove boxes in the front, a couple of speakers, a couple of mirrors, heel-toe shifters like you'd expect on any touring cruiser built in the last several years, and even some nice little saddlebag protectors. All in all, not much to show beyond that, but we'll talk about it more when we're actually on it. So why don't we go for a ride?
Hey guys, it's John here. Well, I promised you an on-bike review of this Kawasaki Vulcan Vaquero Special Edition. In the beginning of the video, you saw the overview I did back at the garage. I've got it out, though. I've ridden out to a nice little stretch of road. You're not going to see any exciting riding for 2 reasons. One, you never see exciting riding from me. And 2, we just had a very big thunderstorm this morning with hail and evidently even a tornado touching down. So we're going to see probably a decent amount of debris on the road, washed out driveways, gravel, that kind of thing. So, you know, just part of living in the Midwest. But Yeah, watch for that when you're riding. And I'm just gonna tell you ahead of time because I'm gonna get the comment. You are gonna see me moving my position in lane. And before I have to answer all those comments, the reason is the debris in the road that doesn't always show up on the camera. Sometimes it's really fine, like this little gravel here, and you'll see big chunks of it, and so it's just moving around, so I don't have to deal with that. So anyway, here we are. We're at the 2014 Kawasaki Vulcan Vaquero 1700 ABS SE. ABS, of course, meaning that it has the analog brake system. SE meaning it has this cool special edition paint job. So let's get rolling. Stock exhaust, as you can hear. One of the things I love about it as we take off here is the hydraulic clutch. My last bike, my Vulcan 900 that if you've watched my videos before, you've seen. Yeah, here's what I mean by this washout, just kind of everywhere. The roads are just filthy. It has a cable clutch, and a cable clutch is cool. It's just a cable that pulls against springs in the clutch pack, and it works well. But it does require occasional adjustment. It requires the cable be lubed, and it requires, well, it just doesn't work quite as well. It's not quite as linear, not as quite as nice, but it is a cheaper option. A hydraulic clutch uses brake fluid, and only needs that fluid changed, once in a while, depending on how much you ride, maybe every year or two or more. You have to check the manual of your specific bike to know that for sure. But a hydraulic clutch requires no other adjustment or maintenance other than the occasional fluid change. Ew. Man. Look how nasty this is. Whoo! So you can't feel the back end sliding around when I go over that stuff, but I sure can. Check this out. Check this creak. Creak, yes, creak out. Yeah, we've had a lot of flooding from this storm, just a ton of rain dumped in a short amount of time. The lesser man might not ride in these conditions, but I'm not as smart as the lesser man, so I'm out here anyway. So moving on, one of the great features about this, and one of the reasons I have the confidence to be out here, I'm going to close this. I have a shorter windshield, so you're going to get more wind. One of the reasons I have the confidence to be out here even when the roads aren't great is analog brakes. Another great feature, and I do plan on doing a video this year on analog brakes versus conventional brakes and whether or not it's important or whether or not it's something you need. A lot of people feel it is essential and they wouldn't ride a bike without analog brakes, and there's a good clip of people who don't like the idea of any sort of assist, holy cow, look at this, of any sort of assist on their bike. So what we're doing here, clutch in, no brakes, we're just going over all this nasty stuff. I know there's a handful of you who are newer riders watching this. Some don't like the idea of any sort of assist on their bike. They kind of want to be in total control, especially because most anti-lock brake systems, this one included, see the creak again? This one included is a linked braking system, which means applying one of the brakes applies both the brakes. Not in full fashion like on your car. If you apply just the front, you're going to get more of front brake and less rear brake. If you apply just the rear, you're going to get more rear brake and less front brake. But at low speeds on this particular bike, you're going to get both brakes no matter what. The exception of that is when you're stopped or below a certain speed, such as when you are in a parking lot, etc. It's going to be a traditional, brake system where each is independent, which is important at low speeds. If you talk to anybody about riding as a new rider, you take an MSF course, you read a book, you're going to learn how important it is to operate the brakes independently at low speeds. Moving on though, this bike has been a lot of fun. It's one of those bikes that every time I ride it, I enjoy it just a little bit more. A little bit exciting riding through here. Man, this stuff is nasty. I didn't expect the roads to be this bad, and they weren't that bad back the other way. So the temptation is to turn around and double back. Just hope we don't find any flooding or covered low water bridges that will make that decision for us, won't it? This stuff's not too bad, but it's slick, and that's what you have to understand, is all that little pieces of wood, they're wet and slick, and so you've got to be real careful in them. And a good strategy is to follow tire tracks, and then just go slow and be careful, and no sudden movements, no hard braking or hard acceleration, because this stuff is nasty. Yeah, my bike's dirty. So judging by him turning around and the impassable during high water sign, I'm going to make an assumption that he's going to tell me that this is flooded up here and I can't get through. Is it flooded up there? Yeah, me either. I'm going to turn around up here. Yeah. It's actually not bad. If I was in an SUV like her, I wouldn't be all too concerned about it. But I'm not in an SUV. Or anything close to an SUV. So we're just going to turn back and come back the way we came. I'm not going to mess with this, although the road looks clean on the other side. This isn't a very good overview of the bike, is it? Seeing me mess around at low speeds and be more focused on the road. Well, anyway. So we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of ABS and watch this woman continue to go backwards up the road in the middle of both lanes. I'm not quite sure what that's about. So let's talk more advantages. This bike is a comfort bike. This is a touring bike, and comfort is important to me. I do a lot of long distance riding. My 900 stock out of the box. They actually do come in a box. If you didn't know that, motorcycles do come in a big box. But fresh out of the box, the 900 is not an exceptionally comfortable bike, but it's a great platform that can become exceptionally comfortable with the right tweaks and mods and things like that. And that's what I've done. I had an aftermarket seat on it. I had highway pegs. I had a tour pack, which gave me more storage and gave a better backrest for my wife when she rode with me. And let him know that, the weather's not great down there. And a handful of other little touring accoutrements, backrest, the cup holder that everyone loved to make fun of, etc., that help me be comfortable on a long ride. And when I say a long ride, I realize that means different things for different people. A long ride meaning, 400 or 500 miles in one sitting, stopping only for gas, or maybe even a 1,200-mile trip across 2 days. And for others, that's not necessarily a long ride. There's folks who 1,000 miles a day is the way they travel. And of course, there's the famous Iron Butt Rally each year, in which riders travel 1,000 miles a day for 10 days. So long-distance riding requires some amount of comfort. But what this bike has that you can't simply bolt on to something like a Vulcan 900 is a few things. For one, it's a much bigger engine, 1,700 cc's. I've heard people who maybe don't do long-distance riding or who don't quite understand how V-twins work talk about how they don't think that these big engines make much sense. They're obscene. They're too big. I think I maybe even had a comment on my video that anything over 1,000 cc's was silly or unnecessary. But what it does is it allows a much lower RPM because it produces more torque at the low end. This is a V-twin, not an inline 4. A 1,400 cc inline 4, even a 1,000 cc inline 4, has more power than this 1,700 cc V-twin is ever going to have. The difference is it produces its power at a higher RPM while it's spinning up and spooling up. This bike produces its power at a much lower RPM. Again, I don't think the camera's picking up how much that back end is moving going over that slick stuff. It's very unsettling. So the 1,700 cc V-twin gives us the extraordinary advantage of lower RPM, torque at the low end, and just an overall smoothness and comfort that you don't get with a smaller engine. Beyond that, this one has a 6-speed transmission, and it's geared very low. So you can see here, it's third gear, 40 miles an hour. We're cruising along at like 2,200 RPMs, just kind of lumbering along, and that's really comfortable. You don't get the vibrations and things like that you get. Even the best balanced engines out there are going to have vibrations at higher RPMs. It's just a fact of life. It's just a reality to that type of a motorcycle. So you get the lower gearing, you get smoother operation, you get everything that you might want to have in order to have a more comfortable bike. Beyond that, you have much better suspension than you get on a smaller cruiser. I have dual shocks in the back that are that have adjustable damping and also have air shocks in them that Then also you add or subtract air to adjust the way the suspension feels, and so going over bumps in the road and that sort of thing are much smoother, much more comfortable, and not nearly as harsh as on the 900. You'll still see me bouncing around here, but it's not a hard jarring. It's a much slower, smoother, kind of like those old Cadillacs in the 70s had those real bouncy, soft suspensions, and that's what this is. It doesn't do a lot for performance, but it does a lot for comfort. You also generally are going to get cast wheels on a touring bike instead of spoked wheels. Spoked wheels look really cool, but they require tubes in the tires unless you modify them. And tubes can go flat, and more importantly, they're difficult to, not impossible, but difficult to repair on the side of the road. With cast wheels, I have tubeless tires, I mean, and a roadside repair is a lot easier. If I'm going over all that junk and I pick up a nail or a rock or something else in my tire, if I had a patch kit with me, I don't, but if I had a patch kit with me, I could make a repair on the side of the road. What I could actually do, and what I would actually do, is just, call the tow truck and go home. But, it can be done, and that's important. Another thing is generally big wheels, big tires, and big brakes. Lots of braking power, because they expect you to load this thing down with luggage, maybe even pull the trailer or do something really crazy like that. And so they're going to have much more stout brakes than you're going to find on a smaller cruiser. You're also going to have analog brakes on more and more touring bikes. It's coming standard. I believe 2015 and up, the Vaquero, which is what you're seeing here, comes standard with ABS. It's not an additional or extra option or an extra model. Correct me if I'm wrong, Internet, but I believe below 14 there was the Vaquero and then the Vaquero ABS. So ABS was not a standard on the Vaquero model. So right now we're in overdrive. We're in 6th gear and we're cranking 2,000 RPMs, and it's actually a little bit low. I really ought to be in 5th at this speed, but I just want to demonstrate kind of how lumbering this thing is. Another thing you might have noticed is the temperature gauge. You'll see it climb in that kind of low speed stuff. This is a liquid-cooled engine, but it's air and water assist. So it's an air-cooled engine with a water assisted on the heads. So it does heat up. That's nothing to be alarmed about. As long as it doesn't go all the way up to the H, and just bury the needle, it's nothing to be concerned about, and it runs a lot cooler than a lot of air-cooled bikes, Yamahas and Harley-Davidsons that I've ridden. It's much more comfortable. You do feel some heat at low speeds, and especially when stopped in traffic, more so than I did with my 900, but it's not unbearable, and it's not all that common that you're in situations. And as you can see, the needle starts to drop down as soon as you get some speed. And once you've got air flowing over the engine and the radiator, you're pretty much good to go. Kawasaki's newer touring bikes, the Vaquero and the Voyager, have what they call the CAM system, Kawasaki Air Management System. And that system involves essentially some fans that blow heat away from the rider's legs. And it works. It's actually really effective. I've ridden a non-CAMS Voyager, and I've ridden, of course, this Vaquero, and found that this to have a lot less leg heat, thanks to having that system blow the hot air away from the engine and away from my legs. Beyond that, I mean, most of it you saw in the overview. This is it. It handles great. It's a superb handling bike, more so than you might expect from a big bike like this. This bike weighs almost 900 pounds when it's loaded down with fuel, and more than that with me on it. So with me on it, I weigh 220 pounds. So, with me on it, we're talking about half a ton of weight going down the highway here. And the handling is much better than you might expect from a bike with that much weight on it. It just lays into the corners. And no, you're not going to get to watch that with the roads in the shape that they're in right now. But it just lays into the corners. It's really, really nice. It steers nice. Like I said, I'm more excited about this bike every time I ride it. The stereo sounds great. These gauges are totally cool. That's not for everybody. But these 60s muscle car looking gauges are just totally, totally cool. And the dash gives you a decent amount of information. You get your average miles per gallon and your range, and you get your 2 trip odometers. The kind of stuff you'd expect to have, nothing extraordinary. And you get cruise control. If I turn it on here, you'll see a yellow light on the dash. That's the cruise control light. I'm not going to set it here. This isn't really the conditions for cruise control. But I do have the option of cruise control, which means on the interstate, I can flip my cruise control on, and it will control the throttle for me. It's not a throttle lock. It is a real cruise control. A bit of a pet peeve of mine is when you see these things listed online as cruise controls when they're just throttle locks. All they do is lock the throttle. They keep the throttle in the current position. That's not cruise control. That means you'll slow down going up a hill and speed up going down a hill. This is cruise control. It's an electronic system that what it does is adjusts the throttle for various speeds. So when I go up a hill, it adds throttle. When I go down a hill, it reduces throttle. Because this bike has an electronic throttle valve system, when cruise control is engaged, the grip does not twist. It doesn't change. In fact, the grip stays in the idle position. So you just rest your hand, you steer, you brake, you do everything else, but the throttle control is controlled by cruise control. If you do anything out of the ordinary, touch the brake, touch the front or rear, touch the clutch, roll the throttle lever forward, or turn off the cruise control with the switch, you will lose cruise control. It'll turn off. Just like your car, nothing unusual there. And for long interstate riding, it is really nice. I rode it home. It was about a 70-mile ride home, and it was nice when I did some stints on the interstate. It was nice to not have to worry about adjusting throttle and just to cruise along with the cruise control on for short stints. I don't use it all the time, but it's nice to have. It's cool. My only beef, though, with all these switches, there's a lot of switches here, and my only beef with that is that I have small hands, as you can see. I believe these gloves are like a size medium, and they're a little big for me. Maybe they're large and they're big. I don't know. Maybe I need a medium. But with my small hands, these switches and things require me to move my hand around to get to them. Not the end of the world, but yeah, it's there. The important ones, the horn, the high beam switch, the engine kill switch, etc., are well within the reach of my thumb. It's when you get down into the stereo controls, cruise control settings, trip odometer, those sorts of things, it's a little harder to reach. But that's really not an issue. And if I'm not in a situation where I can move my hand, then I don't need to be messing with that stuff anyway. And of course, even though there are controls up on the radio, these handlebar controls is where you control the radio. And it is off, and you're not going to get to hear it. First off, hearing the radio through my microphone isn't going to tell you anything. Second off, there's copyrights on music, even that's played on the radio, and there's rules about that, and they get funny about that, so I'm just not going to deal with it, and you're just going to stare at the nice Kawasaki screen. But otherwise, it works just like the radio in your car. It has RDS, which means it'll show you the name of the song playing on FM radio. And if you pay an extra $100 or so, you can hook your iPod up. You can pay an extra couple $100 and get an XM radio. You can pay an extra few $100 and add a CB radio. Pretty cool stuff. But all that you heard about in the overview. So that's about it. I absolutely love this bike. This bike is totally a lot of fun to ride. I'm going to pull in up here at this gas station and turn off all of my recording and stuff, and that's it. If you have questions, I know this has been a long video, and I know a lot of it was spent kind of down there where the roads were a lot worse than I thought, and me stopping to not die. So apologies for that. But if you have questions about the bike, let me know, and if there's something more you'd like to see, let me know. I will do a more in-depth review after I've got some miles on it, but right now with 230 miles on the clock, it's hard to make too many judgments. And of course, we'll need to get some aftermarket stuff on it, some mods, before I really know how I like the bike, because the thing about a motorcycle is they don't stay stock. At least they don't if you ride it a lot. So we'll see what it looks like when I've got an aftermarket seat and highway pegs and all that sort of exciting stuff. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. I guess I could get some gas. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. God bless.